Oh, finally, here we are across the Spider-Verse. Now, there are things about this particular movie that I absolutely did not like. And it's something that Hollywood is trying to push us towards, and I am not really feeling it. I think Hollywood is starting to take us for granted. We're going to talk about that. But first, I don't want to bog down the review. Let's talk about the positives. Let's because there are a lot of things that work in this particular movie apart from those three things. Number one, this is one of the very few we have seen so many superhero movies. Most of these superhero movies feel like the same thing in a way. They feel they don't have a soul. They just feel like a product. Most of them, especially with Marvel these days. I think you know and I know. Also, DC suffers from the same problem. Now, these particular Sony movies, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, have something that all those movies don't have. They have a personality. And the directors knew that about the first film, and they also brought that here. You can freeze a frame from this movie and show it to anyone, and they'll be able to tell you that that is Sony's Spider-Man, either Across or Into the Spider-Verse, because they have a distinct style and they have a distinct way of doing it in terms of the pacing and in terms of just how many jokes that they are able to push into one of these products. So, hands up, hands down to these people. They did a fantastic job in maintaining what they established in the first film, and they really push it forward in this particular movie. They introduce new things. They introduce a different way of doing it. There are some things that worked, there are some things that did not work. So let's begin with what actually I think worked. Number one was the voice acting. Now, it's one thing to watch a character who looks like a character and go like, wow, that character is drawing me in based on how they've been designed. And it's another thing to watch a character and find yourself listening more to what they're saying based on the person who's playing that character in the background. The character is convincing, not in how they are portrayed, but in what they say and how they deliver their lines. That for me was one of the standouts, because I found myself most of the times really, because there are quiet moments in the film and you find yourself being drawn in. I found myself being drawn in by the dialogue, the more laid back conversations. For me, absolutely worked. And I think one of the strongest point about this movie was the voice acting. Yes, the animation was there. Yes, the fantastic visuals were there. But there were moments that characters will interact with each other and you'd go like, yeah, I feel like I'm interacting with real people, And each character is given a voice, because we have so many characters in this movie. Yet each character feels different. Each character feels unique. They are distinct based on how they express themselves and how they talk. Their tonal variation represents the character. That's one thing that I absolutely loved about this. The music is everywhere. You have all kind of music inside there. I think there's a character that people are particularly going to like, because there's an element of rock that comes into the film. There's just a blend of so many musical types. And one thing, I know it's too early to talk about it, but there's something about music that did not work. But generally, it works in terms of sound and music. It's pretty cool. The sound effects, again, it's animated, so nothing exists. So I don't know how some of the sound designers were able to actually do with some of the things that happen, because there are a lot of trippy moments. Let me just put it that way. There are a lot of trippy moments that happen, especially when you're crossing to some other dimension. And each world is given a certain sound about it that's distinct from the other sound. Let me just put it that way. When you go to a different place, everything sounds different. And those are the small details that I absolutely appreciated about this particular film. The other thing is the visuals. Oh my goodness, the visuals. Remember the first film, you would pause the movie and just remove a frame, freeze frame a part of the film and show anyone, and they'd go like Into the Spider-Verse. It feels like graffiti mixed with an artist and an animator. It's a blend of many things. There's a very interesting use of color. And the thing about animation is visual storytelling. Cinema is visual storytelling. And you can actually see that here. They absolutely exploit every single thing about visual storytelling. And that also includes the world. The thing I liked about Into the Spider-Verse, and I also like about this particular film, is how the world is also a character in itself. Yes, you have the normal characters. They are well designed. There's the dynamic use of all the animation style and artistic strokes and color and stuff. But the world in itself is also a character in itself, in how everything around the characters behave. And if they go to a different world, you can see the character of the world around it change. So the environments are characters in themselves, in the way they're animated, in the way they are designed, the architectural design, and in the way all the other extras are animated. They feel different in each different, because this is more of a multiverse. They feel different in each different universe. And you can actually see that. And I appreciate that the fact that the director made it simple for us, because you may think that this is actually very visually noisy, but it's contained in a way. It's contained in that if it's a dark moment, they will find a way of using color to communicate that. If it's a happy moment, they'll use color and line strokes to communicate that. Some characters look and feel the way they're supposed to look and feel. Especially Sport. Sport for me was my favorite because, well, you know, when you're animating a character, the final product is not what was original. There's a process. There's like a very long process in animation. When you drop between, you've designed your character, but now you're animating the character. You don't immediately start animating. You need to start out with maybe stickman movement, and then now you go to fill in the body, and then now you make really sketchy movements. You make sketchy figures that represent the character. And you can see that with this Sport character, they have those really sketchy baselines. I like to call them baselines overlaid with the final artwork. And for me as an artist, I absolutely appreciated that. It was a representation of just how sketchy the character was and unpredictable. If you look at another character's world, Gwen, her look is different. It's more of watercolor, and so the character looks different. Her world looks different, and that's the most important thing. Everything looks different based on where the characters are and the mood of the character. So you, as the audience, never get lost at any point, despite the fact that, wow, it's a visual overload in terms of style and color. The other thing is the animation. And when I talk about the animation, I don't mean the animation, everything. You know, animation is all stretched, everything exaggerated. But in this movie particularly, it's the quiet moment and the tiny little movements and the random movements that makes everything feel natural. You know, they're swinging somewhere and they will do something and they include voice work, and then they will animate something differently that will make it kind of feel natural and throw you off in a way, because you don't expect them to do that, but it also makes sense for them to do that. So the animations is very detailed. That also, I think it was also present into the Spider-Verse. If you remember Kingpin moment when he was flashing back and used the biro to actually do a very quick flashback and get where the character was coming from. So you also have an element of that in this particular film. There are just those small quiet moments with small animated details that makes everything look interesting. Apart from the style, there's small mediocre, it's just small moments every now and then. You look at a side and you see something animated in a way that, yes, you know it's animated, but they put an effort into making that thing do something that actually makes a lot of sense. Here's the thing. Remember the second Spider-Man and the reason that, okay, personally I loved Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi's Spider-Man so much. You remember the second Spider-Man, and basically Sam Raimi's first two movies, why we love them so much, because they grounded the character. They gave the character real world situations that we are familiar with, and they put you on the spot as the viewer, because you clearly understand where the character is coming from, and you go like, yeah, if it was me, I would have done the same thing. So they actually also did that in this. They give Miles situations that are kind of very relatable and familiar to me and you, and put in that position. Sometimes you think, or I thought, that I would do the same thing. So I really love that and appreciate that about this particular movie. Still on story, there are a lot of familiar aspects about how they chose to tell this story. Yes, you remember the first movie, it had all smaller things popping up on screen to help you understand some things, and now you also had that in this particular film. There's a way that, even with the opening, the way Miles is introduced, it feels familiar with the first film. Nothing feels out of place. It feels like it's a product of the first film. I think that's the best way to put it. And I appreciate those kind of things, because if you look at most sequels, they usually like to push away some aspects about the first film and then focus on making a bigger, larger second film. But here's the thing about my channel. I don't like talking about directors. I don't like talking about writers. I don't like talking about actors or who played them. I prefer talking about the product, because there are so many people who work on a film and all you can talk about is how awesome Christopher Nolan is. He didn't do it by its own, or how this particular cinematographer is so awesome, or how Brian Taylor is awesome when it comes to music. No, we don't talk about that. I prefer talking about talking about the director, talking about the cinematographer, talking about the actors without mentioning their name, so that to give credit to everyone who worked on the film. Let's talk about the director and the people who wrote this film. I'm not going to mention their name, but you already know them based on how they do their products, based on how they write their products. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of fast-paced humor that I found myself, something has been said, it's pretty hilarious. There's something that has come on screen, I'm still laughing. Then as we move on, I remember there's something that was mentioned after that I missed. And then there was something else that I missed. You find yourself, the dialogue is so quippy, so fast, so funny, that this requires a rewatch. Yes, for the visuals, and yes, for also the writing. Yeah, this is really, really funny, and it's really, really well written, with those loud moments and the quiet moments. The quiet moments for me were it, because now it grounds everything and reminds you that yes, we have all this extravagant visual noise, but we also have a good story. And above all the visuals, above everything, a quintessential Spider-Man movie is about making the character feel like one of us. It's making the character feel ordinary. It's making the character feel familiar. And they hacked it with this. With Miles and all the other Spider-Mans, they hacked making everyone feel like us. Making everyone feel like, yeah, you could be that guy because you're facing the same issues that they face and we face. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Still on the writing, something else that was also pretty interesting about the writing. They gave the side characters more to do with, especially the parents. You know, the first film, the parents were just more supporting. They were there to actually help push the story. But this time, they feel like they are a pivotal part of the story. They feel like they are within this world. They feel more present. I think for me, the last, Into the Spider-Verse, the biggest character was the uncle. And I think he was more of, we focused on their relationship more than we did with the parents. And in this particular film, we feel that the parent, especially the mom, she was given more to work with. She plays a pivotal part. And also the dad, they're more present in this particular movie than they were in the last movie. So the pacing, for the first half of the movie, I felt the time. I felt that this was dragging itself. But the second half of the movie moved super quickly. Everything was just moving. Everything was moving in terms of action. The first half was moving in terms of dialogue, but sometimes it kind of felt, kind of easy, kind of slow, like it felt, the first hour of the movie felt like a drawn out first act. Let me just put it that way. But majority of the part, this is a very well paced movie. And I'll get into the bad very, very soon because there's something I need to talk about. Finally, on the goods, all this falls into not the good, it's not the good, it's not the bad. It falls somewhere there in the middle. Marvel failed in how they were able to put up their multiverse. I feel like Marvel messed up Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. This is the closest that you would get to that insanity that Marvel was going for, because it has every element that I thought was going to be in Doctor Strange. And now we have a Flash movie that is focusing on Barry Allen being able to jump into different multiverses. And watching this, I felt like Sony were also planning to create their own multiverse, because we have a lot of interesting cameos in this movie. There are so many Spider-Men, and there is just so much potential in terms of opening doors into different multiverses, because now they've opened the gateway into, in terms of Spider-Man movies. No, you thought No Way Home was insane? This one just throws everything out, and it opens the potential of seeing insane crossovers. And the cameos for me was that's kind of cool. That was kind of weird, but it was kind of cool. Trust me, what you saw in the trailers, what I'm talking about, you may think that you've seen, you may understand the movie, but there's a lot in this particular movie. There's a lot in terms of exploring the multiverse. And it feels more like a Sony's plan to introduce their own version of a multiverse. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, because the directors had a story and they created a story based on that. The ending, I'm sorry to say this, but the ending reminded me of Flashpoint in a way. Forget about the Batman, just how they are able to play with the characters and reintroduce some characters in a certain way and change some things. That's what I'm saying. In a way, this felt like Sony's version of the multiverse. So now, let's look at what I did not like about this particular movie. And they're not necessarily bad, it's just what I felt. I could see the studio, I could see some things, I could see strings being pulled. Now, number one, the movie, the first half of the movie feels extremely draggy. It drags a lot. And it feels like, because this is part one of two, and I'm going to talk about that. This is part one of two, and it feels like, so this is what I think happened with this particular film. Now, I've never been to Hollywood, I don't know how the system works. I don't know I know the directors, I know the studio, but from a business angle, I'm not experienced. So this is pure speculation. This is what I think happened based on what I saw with this film. This is part one of two. And it looks like the writer and the directors went to the studios and went like, we have this 2-hour movie that we have for the next film. And the studio, based on what they saw with the first film, they went like, oh man, what you did with the first film was pretty awesome. We loved that. We didn't expect it, but we absolutely loved what you did with the first film. So in this particular film, we want you to do the same thing, but now add diversity and inclusion in order to bring as many people into the studio, into the film as possible. We want you to add diversity and inclusion. Make it work, because we need all these people in the cinema. We need more people to come and see this film, because the first one, more people did not come to see this particular film. And so the director and writers go like, okay, they go back, they rewrite the story, and you get a 4-hour movie. So when you get a 4-hour movie, they come back to present it to the studio, and the studio looks at it and goes like, yes, this is a 4-hour movie. And so the directors go like, yes, based on what we've included, what you wanted, we have a 4-hour cut. We have a 4-hour story. So the studio goes like, yeah, that's pretty cool. With what you are able to do the same thing. We'll give you all the money that you need, just do it. And the guys are like, what do you mean? The studio goes like, no, it's pretty cool. This is an opportunity for us to get more money. Cut it in the middle. Yeah, you have the first act, you have the second act, you have the third act. So at the beginning of the second act, I want you to chop it in the middle. Chop it in the middle, end with just the enormous cliffhanger. Where the conflict is supposed to be introduced, I want you to cut it there. The problem with chopping it in the middle, you know what happens? You have a movie that ends at the second act. So where am I going to with this particular story? The first half of the movie feels like an elongated first act. The movie feels like a 1.5 movie. So for me, where the movie began was 30 minutes, 40 minutes to the end of the movie. That's when I started feeling like we are going somewhere, because we meander a lot in the first hour. We feel like we're running around in the first hour. The first hour feels like a very long first act. So when we jump into the second act, and now another conflict, a very interesting conflict is introduced, and I think this is where they're going with the next film. It's abruptly cut, and you feel like you just left us hanging. And this is what I have a problem with Hollywood. They did the same thing with Fast X. Now, Dune deserved that treatment. You know why? Because Dune is a very long movie. It's a very big book. It has a lot of content that deserves to be explored in more than 2 movies. But this is a comic book movie. It does not deserve to hang. Fast X is a car about exploding cars. It's an over-the-top action movie. Why does it need to be 2 movies? Why are they making everything into a saga? Why do they feel Mission Impossible is going to get a part 2? Meaning we're going to have the same treatment. Within 2 months, you're going to watch 3 movies that don't end. I feel like Hollywood now is getting a bit greedy in the way they're treating this part 1, part 2 thing. The difference between Infinity War and Endgame, Infinity War felt complete. Infinity War was a Thanos movie. Endgame was now the final confrontation. You get the difference? So they completed the first movie, they completed Infinity War, then they jumped into Endgame, because Infinity War, again, what I just said, it's all Thanos, and Thanos actually winning and getting what he wants. Endgame is the hero now coming back and trying to get, it's now conflict. Everyone was given their story. Now we find everyone in a ball, and we have that final access piece. So comfortably, both movies can stand on their own. Now, for Fast X and what they've done with this particular film, it clearly, it's what I just said. Second act introduced the conflict and then just cut. Could it have been shorter? Could this movie have been shorter? Of course it could have been shorter. If the first act of the movie was lean, I believe that this story could have been complete, because I kind of see where they want to take the story. But this particular story could have been complete if they decided to do something about the first hour. If they just made it a bit leaner, if they gave it like 20 minutes, I think it would have made more sense. And we are working with people who understand editing and pacing. These are guys who are very good with that. These are guys who are very good with, making a movie move fast. So I think they were able. I mean, one of my favorite thing about Into the Spider-Verse was Kingpin background. How they were able to do that in less than a minute with a biro pen. That was pretty cool. These are people who are able to do that, and yet here we are having a very bloated 1 hour. So for me, that was it didn't work for me. And that need for diversity, I understand that we need to bring more people into the cinema. I get it. Don't ever lie to yourself and say that Hollywood movies care about you so much that they bring in diversity in order to. They're socially conscious. They don't care about the social status of the world. All they care about is bringing as many people into the theater seats as possible. And the first film did not give us that. So this second film, they had to bring more people. So we need a bit. You need to put out there, even in the promotional material, we need to put women out there. We need to put different cultures out there so that we can try and bring all these people into the cinema. So yeah, I understand from a business perspective they needed to do that. And I hope more people will come to see the movie so that we don't have a situation like this in the next particular movie, in the next movie. Basically, to summarize everything that I've said about this, the bad part about this movie, Hollywood, you need to stop doing part 2s. You don't need that rush. You're being greedy. Some of these stories can be fast acts. I'm sorry to say, maybe the story was longer, maybe it's going to be more epic, but it's a greedy move. You deliberately make a long movie so that you can try to milk that cow as much as possible. Anyway, and note, all the movies that have part 2s are not the first movies. Yes, and not as in fast, they're not like the first movie. They're all either, this is a sequel, Fast X is the 10th movie, Mission Impossible is what? The 8th, the 9th, I don't know, the 10th movie. So it's a property that already works, and they feel the need to stretch it out to continue milking the cow. I, as a viewer, I'm starting to feel like I'm being exploited. As a viewer currently, because if it was one movie to be okay, but if it's 3 movies the same year, that's exploitation. The last thing, and this is a much lighter one, when I go like na 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 na, you remember the first movie, right? Yeah. So in this particular movie, they don't have. Yes, they do have a song, but it's still connected to the first one. But they don't have a new. I expect them to have that one new song that you hear and you remember about this particular film. You hear and it connects with you with this new film. But it's not a big deal. It's just one of those petty things, because I thought that they creatively used that song in the first movie with the marketing and stuff. So I would have expected them to try to find a new song that is catchy and sticks like that first film movie. But generally, what they did is okay, it's cool. But I just expected them to have used maybe a different tune that was closer to what they did with the first one, and maybe tried to, connect. Anyway, that's it. In summary, this is a very good film. I would give it a 4 out of 5. It's fantastic. It's one of the most visually pleasing movies that I've ever seen. I'm an artist, so I truly 100% enjoyed this. If you're looking to go with kids, if you have a problem with lights and flashing colors, this is not the movie for you. If you love woke, if you are anti-woke, there's a lot of that, but you understand why they needed to do it. But generally it's a very good film. It's a good time in the cinemas. It deserves a cinema treatment. Don't go watch it in the smallest screen possible. Go watch it in the biggest screen possible. And if it's possible to see it in IMAX in 3D, if it's possible, this is an amazing time. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Please subscribe. I request, if you are here, please if you haven't subscribed, just click the button and subscribe. And hopefully you watch what you enjoy and enjoy what you watch, and I will see you on the next one.